This is the Like-Minded Investors Real Estate Podcast, episode number 13. Welcome to the Like-Minded Investors Podcast. I'm Kier.
And I'm Bill.
And on today's episode, we have two guests who you might recognize from episodes 11 and 12, and that's Steve and Travis, who have a unique story on how they were able to connect actually through the Like-Minded Investors community.
Yeah, I thought their story was super interesting. I think this episode in particular is one of the more interesting podcasts that I've ever heard in terms of real estate investing. I mean, I don't think there's many podcasts out there where you're going to have a contractor who worked with an investor on a project and, come together on a podcast and talk through how that works.
Yes, I kind of love how Steve, it was almost like he was able to come in with his contracting business and kind of help, like they were friends first. And then he was able to come in and really help like his investor friend out when it came to the renovation of 3 units in a 5-plex that Travis bought.
Yeah, I think that was the number, and totally agree. I think the friendship is really what saved Travis. I mean, you'll hear in this episode, but Travis, I think, was getting to a point where, especially with the debt that he had taken on, it was getting to kind of crunch time. And Steve, being that Steve was from the area and was a contractor, Travis went to him and, I don't want to spoil it, but maybe there's a happy ending.
Yeah, it was, I don't know. I'm excited for people to listen to this episode too. Yeah, because it is unique. And there were some, it was fun listening to some of those crazy issues that they found in that building. And I thought it was, I love how they touched on the fact, Steve is so good at what he does that he was able to do what I think Travis said, something about getting the 3 units done or more work done in 3 weeks than the other contractor had done in 5 months. And I thought that was incredible to hear.
Yeah, I think that speaks volumes to get to vetting contractors and getting a good one in place. I'm not saying everybody is Steve where they're going to be able to do it in what seems like, a flash, but getting a good one that can work at a good pace, good quality, at a good price. I think, will only help your portfolio grow.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess let's bring them in. Welcome, Steve and Travis. Thank you both for coming on again. It's so good to have you here again. And I'd really love to dive into how you two are connected and the project you guys did together. But first, Steve, why don't you give like a brief overview again, for those that didn't listen to episode 11, on who you are and what you do.
Hi, everybody. My name is Steve Stolman, and I am the owner of Done Right Home Solutions, which is a contracting company, and Done Right Property Group, which is my real estate investing company. And I'm a full-time real estate investor with a contracting company. We have 49 doors and 27 properties right now.
Very cool. And Travis, for those who didn't listen to episode 12, do you also want to give us a rundown?
My name is Travis Hill, active duty Marine stationed in California, currently investing out of state, and have a property that we're going to talk about with Steve in Cleveland, along with other single family land, private lending, some other syndication stuff across the country.
Very cool. Very cool. So I guess we'll dive right into, this project that you guys did together, and kind of, I guess the first thing is, how did you guys even get connected if you aren't even in the same state?
Steve and I met through you.
I did not know that.
Yeah. We met through whatever LinkedIn meetup thing that we had back in, I don't know, what is it, 18 months ago now? A year, 2 years, a year, something like that?
Yeah, the like-minded investors monthly meetup. It's still going. So third Thursday of every month. For anybody that wants to join, we'll put a link in the bio or in what's it called, Phil? The notes, the show notes.
Show notes.
You had something before that though, before you like made it, before it had a name.
Oh yeah, that was like our little small like mastermind type thing that we were doing. That kind of turned into the monthly meetup.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
That's where,
Oh my gosh, that's so
our
cool.
introduction was met.
Yeah. Travis, one of the two of us reached out to each other, right? And we scheduled a call, which was fun. Do you remember the first phone call? I was in Mexico standing in a pool was our first call.
Tough life.
Oh, I know it. Don't I know it?
He was talking, I think he had a dive scheduled that day, or a dive, like either finished the dive or had a dive upcoming. And I'm like, oh man, I'm a rescue diver. And he's like, oh man, I dive too. And so we kind of initially just really bonded in total bro fashion. And, I think we still have aspirations of having a DNRE investment group, which stands for diving and real estate, because those are two things that we both enjoy quite a bit. So that's how that started. That's how, and yeah, it's been awesome ever since.
Off and running.
That is so cool. So what did you guys talk about on that first phone call? Was it to actually figure out a way to work together, or was it just kind of like to connect and meet more people and see where the relationship went?
It was, we're going back at least a year from that conversation. And I think we covered a little bit of everything, right, Travis?
Definitely did. Yeah. I think that we talked more life and diving, and I think we were sharing each other's vision of what we wanted our life to be, or what we saw our life to be with each other before we ever started talking about like real estate or specific jobs or issues, because we're very kindred spirits in a lot of those ways. Yep.
The funny thing about that call is I remember, because the time was different. You're on East Coast time, and I don't remember what time zone I was on. I'm sorry, you're on West Coast, and I was on East Coast. And I remember waking up in the morning, and I'm like, I got a call. So, and I blew it the time. I was way early, so I didn't want to blow the call. So I think I was 3 hours early, or at least 2 hours early.
Better early than late.
Yep.
So let's talk about this project that you guys kind of worked on together. Travis, I would start with you, I guess, since you were the one that purchased the deal. So kind of run us through that.
Okay, we'll get the backstory out of the way so we can get to the true good Steve and done right. I purchased the property through they're kind of an all-in-one wholesale / flipping company, and had turned a couple people on to them, and they had partnered with a contractor who I originally went with to buy the property with, and everything was fine. I found some hard money to make it work, and they were willing to work with hard money, because usually they're an all cash offer company. So found the hard money, put my money down, and we closed in January of this year. And continued to talk to Steve, continued to build our relationship, and we're sharing ideas. He went and drove by. Little fun fact about Steve is he likes gumball machines.
Yep.
And there were gumball machines in the basement. And so he was like, dude, it's gotta be a good thing, there's gumball machines. So that's how that's the backstory to preface where we are. Bought in January, had a contractor in place, had a rehab budget in place, and that consisted of rehabbing 3 bedrooms or 3 units of the 5-plex. And that was it. And fast forward till now, and a whole bunch of other new and exciting things happen.
So, I guess my question is, was there something, I feel like I remember when we were all talking, Travis, did you have a contractor before Steve?
I did.
Okay.
Yes.
I thought so. So would you be willing to chat about what happened with your first contractor?
Yes. Without getting too mad by talking about him and not mentioning his name. So he was a part of the company that he actually was in partnership with the company that I purchased the property from. And it turned out that he actually lived in Columbus, and he was having a superintendent that he had hired there in Cleveland to oversee the renovations. And that's not, if you're a contractor, I'm sure Steve can attest, unless you have an amazing super, that's not a good course of action for anybody to try to rehab a house a state away, or sorry, a city away. And for your listeners that don't know the difference, like what is it, an hour and a half, Steve, from Cleveland to Columbus?
I would say about 2 hours.
Yeah. So very tough to get the traction needed, I think, from the get-go. And that's something I didn't know. I didn't ask those questions, and I didn't, there was a lot of ignorance and naivety moving forward on my part.
So beyond the 2-hour commute and hiring the super, was there anything else that kind of went wrong? I imagine that just led to things maybe going very off the rails very fast.
Yeah, I should have paid more attention. I probably could have heard from here in California it going off the rails and the screeching that was happening. Yeah, from the get-go, the draws with the hard money lender weren't, there was confusion between the contractor and the hard money lender about the draws. And therefore that in turn caused the contractors who are actually working on the house. I wouldn't even really call them contractors. Would you, Steve?
We had just talked about that recently. The bar to call yourself a contractor is a little low in my eyes. So anybody can call themselves a contractor.
Yeah. So the person that attempted, or the person that attempted to be one, or the groups of it, the individuals that were working on the property were not of very high caliber, unfortunately. And because the partner contractor was in Columbus, he relied heavily on the superintendent, who was also apparently a home inspector, which made that even more like disturbing as I found that out later. But he would just show up, the super would show up, take some pictures, and then be gone the rest of the day. And that was considered work. And then it just got to the point where month 3, month 4, and no progress is being made, like not significant progress was being made.
Travis, I was curious, so when you bought this thing, what did they tell you? So what was the deal that was made, and what bill of goods were you sold? Like, you're going to have a perfectly finished house when we're done. We have our contractor, and he's going to make miracles happen, and life's going to be perfect. Unicorns and rainbows, baby.
Yeah, at this point, it's definitely a two-legged unicorn. No, I'm kidding. It was basically, the house is great. You just need to flip 3 units and then we're good. That's basically what it was.
Yep.
We rehab these 3 units. You'll get the ARV at this, and here are the comps, and that's it. Like, okay.
So so would you recommend this? I mean, is this kind of technically like a turnkey company, or is it like a wholesale flip? Is it different from a turnkey company?
Yes. So both, they do wholesale, they do flips, they do burrs. They're in other markets. And they're successful in other markets. I've seen their work. I kind of vetted them. I've talked to other people that have done business. So I had established, or at least understood, and had some trust in them. But the contractor, not so much.
So
and they have since, like, they're not even together anymore. Like, they were doing a deal with that contractor, and that contractor is now, like, he's not even doing a deal with them when they're trying to sell it. sell their piece as well because it turned into just a huge headache. So it was a fail all around, not just for me.
Oh, okay. So it seems like they might have like at least corrected that relationship with that contractor, which is good. So would you use them again then?
Would I use them again? I would use them. I would recommend them to other people. Just make sure, like, hey, if you know the market, you know the area that they're in, because maybe you have boots on the ground, you have family, or that you came from there. I would. I mean, because I've been fortunate that the people that I work with in that company, I still talk to them, and I don't hold any ill will against them. They were just as frustrated and confused and pissed off, I guess, for lack of a better word, about the whole entire situation for my property and their property that they were working with him on. And so they're just trying to do what's right, just trying to do good by their investors and keep, do good by their name and their company too. So I don't hold that against them.
So what tips, Steve, I feel like this kind of leads into, what tips do you have for someone who's looking for a contractor? Like if that company wanted to pick up some better contractors, or if an investor is looking for a contractor, kind of what do you look for, or what do you suggest people look for in a contractor, and like how do they vet them?
I think I have a great one to start with. So we live in this digital age. Everybody's busy. So a lot of people like text messaging, me being one of them. So maybe start off with a text message. If you find someone that you want to work with, start with a text message and start with introducing yourself. Because it's funny, I get so many of these text messages. Hey, would you be my contractor? That's it. And I post them on Instagram every now and again too. And so do a quick, 2-3 sentences. My name is Steve Stolman. I'm an out-of-state investor. I have heard things about you, and I'd like to talk to you about being a contractor for me. So that would be a great start, I think. Let them know who you are, what you want. I think that'd be a great start. Yeah.
Then would you suggest, like, I'm sure you and Travis, you talked about your goals and stuff like that. I want to know, is that because you guys were friends? Like, I know, do you want to talk about that with a contractor when you're vetting them? Like, make sure you have some of the same goals, or at least that they're in alignment. Is that something you would recommend somebody talk with their contractor about?
If I was looking for a contract, what I'll do now when I'm looking for a contractor, because as a contractor, I'm looking for other contractors. So I want to look at their Facebook, their Instagram. Do they publish stuff? That's something we're really proud of, that we constantly are publishing new content and it's all what we're doing. So every job that we're on, we're pushing out videos, time lapses. I've done, I haven't messed with YouTube too much, but Facebook, Instagram, we do all that. So I'd want to snoop around there, ask in the community that you're in, like, how did you hear about this person? Have you seen any of their work? So I usually, sorry about the dogs. I usually will ask someone to, can I come to your job site? Like, hey, where are you working at? I'm in the area. I happen to be in the area. Can I come and take a look? Out of state, that's going to be a little harder to do. But, really, if you don't know them, then you need to figure out how to know them. And we could do that with tenants as well, too, right? When we place a tenant, we look at their Facebook, we see if they got Instagram, and we do background checks and credit checks on them. So you should be doing the same thing with your contractor. Have a 30-minute conversation with them about. Travis and I spent, that phone call was over an hour long, I would imagine. And we found out that we're super like-minded. Ding, ring the bell. And, we're looking for a lot of the same things. So it was easy for us it was easy for me. I was very comfortable with Travis. We've talked many times when this deal went south. It was easy for me to jump on the deal and help out, because I just know about Travis.
And then Travis, from your perspective, like, did you do any like additional vetting of Steve? I know you guys had already known each other when you made that phone call when you were having some issues. But did you from like a litigious perspective or anything? Did you want to dot your I's, cross your T's, or anything?
Well, the beauty of that, because like Steve is so big on Instagram, and if you follow him, you're going to see this all the time because he's always posting his work. So he's posting his work, he's showing it is. And so that's huge. Like that's your own, that's your own resume right there that you're putting to the world. And if you don't have, confidence in what you're putting out there, you're definitely not going to be putting it on social media, 100%. And
right.
He's able to, when he was on the job full time, he was able to bring his professionals in, and they're sitting there videoing and send me the video, right? Or you put it on Dropbox or put it on Google Drive and be like, hey, see this, and this, and they're following along with the phone, right? And like, this is a problem, and that's a problem, and that's a problem, and you can, oh, okay, cool. And Steve makes it, him and his crew make it in such a way that I'm not a contractor. Do I kind of understand how a nail gets driven into a piece of wood? Sure, yep, I'm cool with that. I'm pretty comfortable. But the way they do it with social media and with technology, yeah, I pretty much understand what needs to happen. Okay, cool. Bring up a price quote. Check. 50% up front. Check. And we go forth and get it done. And then just a matter of, how are we going to work in conjunction with the property manager to make sure that we're not crossing those lines, and then how do we, and because we have that trust established prior to, I don't have to question the price. And then he's always like, hey, do you want good, better, best? And I'm like, all right, well, this is how we're going to work. And he puts that out there, and he lets me make the choice, because nothing's more frustrating than an investor, whether you're in state or out of state. You're like, yeah, can you fix that? Yeah, that'll be $12,000, whatever. And you're like, wait, I didn't really want the super 24 karat gold seated toilet seat. Oh, I just figured that was good. Well, no, how about we talk about that? So like he, as an investor, understands that and is able to convey that, but also as a contractor, he's like, hey, I can do this, this, and this. And then he lets me have the choice, and therefore he keeps me, like that empowers me to be like, yeah, he's letting me run this stuff. And at the end of the day, he's like, yeah, man, like I'm running it, but you're just feeling like empowered. Cool, I get to wear pants, awesome. It's a win-win. Like who doesn't win? And I, as an out-of-state investor, I have to know that, right? Like I can't be the dude that's just like, hey, Steve. And because I know Steve would be like, hey, Travis, get off. Your thumb's on my head. Oh, sorry, bro.
Yeah, let me do me.
Yeah.
And Travis got to see. So I was, before we started your project, Travis, I was working really hard in one of the apartment buildings. And so we have different, me as a real estate investor, I have different levels of good, better, best that I do for myself and my building. Some of the buildings are in not great areas, so we don't put the gold plated toilets in there. And so it was pretty cool, because I kept on posting videos of exactly what I was doing on my place. And Travis got to tune in, and he's like, that I want that. That's what I want, exactly what you're doing right now. Make my place look like that. So it was super helpful. The Instagram thing was really helpful.
I feel like social media is like almost like a portfolio of your work. And,
right.
For real estate investors, almost like a track record. That's what I love about social media.
Are you Grant Cardone, right? Here's my Grant Cardone quote again. Is social media using you, or are you using social media? So, I have always looked at my social media accounts as a continuous commercial for the Done Right umbrella of companies. And just keep putting out those great videos. We're buying houses, we're selling houses, we're buying apartments, we're selling apartments, we're remodeling stuff, we're looking for tenants. So, that's my social media is all consuming that. And the investors that reach out to me, so the out-of-state investors that are reaching out to us are usually, hey, I see what you do on Instagram. I see what you're doing on Facebook, and I want that. What's it take to get us there?
So I want to go back real quick to like the processes. I find that super interesting, how you guys work together, like, you know, Travis, you being out of state. I think it's really cool how you utilize like Dropbox and like video and stuff like that. What other things did you kind of do to kind of keep him in the loop, Steve, for kind of what was going on with the project?
So when we took on the project, when we decided to take on the project, Travis came into town, and we walked through the house together. So my thing to Travis was, I said, you already know that I'm going to be posting this all over Instagram. You're going to see my stories constantly of what's going on. I also, when part of my deal to our customers is regular text messages with pictures and videos. And so that's what we did. We did talk about Dropbox, but I don't think we utilized it. Just at the end of the day, there were issues that came up, and I just post some pictures. I'd do a text message. Hey, Travis, here's what we found today. So we need to resolve these things. Here's pictures of them. Here's the direction. So I don't just bring them problems. I tell them, like, here's the issue. Here's how I think we should resolve it. What do you think? And that's how we like to run things. Just text. We keep it simple. We just text message.
And you're talking about your process, right? Like it's not a lead funnel, or it's not our process is communication. That's our process. Our ability to be like, because as we communicate back and forth, he would say, hey, I'm struggling about this. And I'm like, well, I'm struggling about this. And then we would talk about it and communicate and then find the answer through communication. And then he's like, hey, you know what? Like, hey, in my time in the Marine Corps, as I'm leading Marines, this is something that's worked really well. He's like, oh, I'm going to try that. And he's like, oh, I'm having this problem over here. And so we were able to bounce ideas off each other. And then that helped us create not only a better relationship, but it also helped improve our, like, his streamline in his office to the communication. But it was like, I think communication was our biggest process that we used.
Yeah, Steve, what's your quote?
The world revolves around communication, contacts, and confidence.
Love it.
Yep.
So let's dive into contracts. Did you guys come up with a contract, Steve? Do you always have contracts with your clients? And kind of walk us through what that process looked like.
Great. It's funny. I don't do a ton of contracts. We're so busy in this economy here in 2021. We're so busy that a lot of the times the work that I'm a part of, because I have multiple members on my crew. So the work that I'm a part of usually is, I'll just shoot out a text and say, you want X, Y, and Z done? Here's the cost for X, Y, and Z done. Joe, my right hand man that works for me, he's really good at writing things out. And if I remember right, Travis, I think Joe went ahead and Joe did his contract. It's a handwritten deal. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Our contracts are kind of vague, and they're vague for a reason, to give us some leverage. Or not leverage, but to give us some leeway is the word that I was looking for. Our contracts are vague to give us some leeway on the properties. And it just basically says, we're going to rehab this, and, we don't go, it's not so detailed as to say, like, we're going to do weathered barn, vinyl plank floors, and this and that, and knocking out every detail.
That is so interesting, because I feel like a lot of new investors really struggle with the contractor part and get really caught up in the contracts and stuff, and like the wording and what needs to be in there, and that every single thing needs to be accounted for. So it's interesting that since you guys had a relationship, you didn't need that.
Right.
Yeah.
You got to remember too, I think David Green, his investing out of state book was he's a very big micromanager. So he's going to see the itemized list, and like he kind of really dictates a lot in the book. So if you have new investors that are reading David Green stuff, they're going to be all about that. I think, in my opinion, because when I read the book, I was like, oh, I got to do all this stuff. Because when Steve took on the project, I had him on the first project. I had him do a contract, and I told him that the contract was to secure our friendship. Because if the contract goes to crap, I'd much rather have him as a friend than as a contractor. Luckily, we get to have both. But his friendship to me is worth more than any amount of money or any flips that we have. And so, did the contract go through was the contract a part of every single thing moving forward? No, it wasn't. But I think that Steve had a heck of a time trying to get that contract, even an attorney to look at it. I think the first day, that was kind of a struggle too. So I think that kind of helped, like, oh, we don't got 2 days to find an attorney. Just go get it done. Okay, cool. But, and speaking of that contract, like, he wrote it up, or I had him look at the contract and he signed it and everything else. We had the attorney look at it and like, yeah, it's fine. There's no crazy verbiage. But we had a reward for finishing early. Or sorry, I initially had a penalty for being late. And I think it was like $200 a week or something. And Steve looked at it and he's like, hey, I have a question about this. He's like, if I'm going to be penalized, I want to be rewarded. And I'm like, okay, right? I said that. He's like, that's only fair. I said, I completely agree that it's only fair. So we were added at the end of the contract that if they finished early, they got paid extra, and they finished early, and so they got paid extra, and that's totally fine. That's how it should be. There should be rewards. It incentivizes you to do good work. That's why nobody says no to a bonus at work, ever.
Right. So the difficulty that we had. So now, as where I'm at in my life and my businesses. So if somebody sends me a contract, I usually don't really even look at it. I just send it over to my legal team and I say, hey guys, here's a contract to look at. So lawyer number one, who I love him and I refer him to everybody. So I think I referred Travis to him. So the first lawyer was like, this is a conflict of interest. I can't represent you against Travis. So then the second lawyer, I think the same thing happened. I think it took like 4 lawyers, and the start date was 2 days away. And I can't find a lawyer to look at the contract. And Travis and I were talking. I was like, I don't know what to tell you. I can't get a lawyer over here to look at. Every lawyer I know doesn't either do it or can't look at it. I think I'm adding in a little bit of, I don't know, dangerous territory, because my business allows me I only work with certain people. So you have to pass some tests before I would work with you as an out-of-state investor. And a lot of that is what does my gut say about you? If I'm going to work for you, we'll have had some lengthy conversations, and I'm going to make sure that we kind of think the same, and that I'm not a big micromanage kind of guy. The thing that Done Right Home Solutions offers, the best thing we do, where we specialize in, we do rental, rehabs, and we do them faster than anybody else. We can do a single family home with a full gut kitchen and a full gut bathroom, and we can knock that out in 40 days. We're trying to get it down to 30 days. We can turn an apartment in like a week. So very few people in our space are doing that. So I don't need the out-of-state investor. My name in the town is pretty well known. And I hope that's not a bragging thing. I'm proud of it. I'm very proud of that. And so my phone rings constantly for people want me to pick up their jobs. So to get into that, so you have to pass that test. Like, you have to be referred to us before we're even going to really look at the job, or we have to have, like Travis and I did, we have to come from some like-minded investors or something like that before we take that stuff on.
So then one of my questions was going to be, do you pick and choose the projects that you work on? So it sounds like it's more you pick and choose the people.
Yes, and the projects too. I've learned shiny object syndrome. So it's almost like we're picking up where we left off before. So I know what my crew is. So I used to try to get my crew to be me, and I realized that they can't. So now I've changed my way of thinking. And Kier, if you work for me, and Bill, if you work for me, I would know that, Kier, you're a really good drywall finisher. So I'm going to really take on drywall jobs. And Bill, you're a great electrician. So I'm going to say, hey, Bill, you do electrical work. And I'm not trying to pound a square peg through a round hole. So the job has to fit what we specialize in, or else it's just going to take us longer, and we're going to be mad it's taking longer. Our next line of customers that's waiting for us is going to be mad because it's taking longer. And then the owner is going to be, the investor is going to be mad at us because it's taking longer. And a lot of people don't realize how much that time saves them money. People don't look at that equation. We're more expensive. We're not the cheap people in town. But I have the pitch. I'll pay, as an investor, I'll pay all of my contractors that come to my job. I just paid more for gutters than I should have, but I asked the guy, we had to talk about it, and the guy was like, yeah, I'll be able to come, it's going to be 2 weeks. So I ended up paying a little bit more and got the guy there in 3 days, which I needed those gutters before I could move tenants in. So he was holding up like $5,000. The gutters were holding up like $5,000 in income. So if I waited more time, that's less money that's going to be in my pocket, even if I pay the next guy more money. Sorry, I got off on a rant.
No, I think it's important whenever you're looking to pull quotes or, assess contractors, especially from an investor perspective. I think it's important to get multiple quotes. And I mean, maybe the highest isn't the best, maybe the lowest isn't the best, but somewhere in the middle probably likely is. And I think it's very important to kind of understand what those differences are. Time being one of them. Time is money.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think Steve understands economics 101, right? Opportunity cost. If you understood that I can have $5,000 in tenants in 2 weeks or 10 days by waiting 2 weeks to save $3,000 on gutters, easy day.
Right.
I can make that connection and be like, oh, I'll save an extra. If I can save X amount of money to get in here in 3 days to get that tenant, that house occupied with rent flowing, that's a quick math.
So many people don't look at it that way. Sorry,
yeah. No, it's fine. I just was gonna bring it back to, it's almost like how long did you say, Travis, the other contractor was working on the property versus how quickly Steve got it done?
Let's see, Steve, you took over in April, May?
Something like that, yep.
Yeah, and he got more work done in the 3 weeks that he was there than the entire previous 4 months, 5 months. And it was, at the end of the day, it was like, boom, here you go.
Yep.
One super cool thing, this is what I think is really neat about what Steve and Dunright does is we had a bathroom. Now the building's built 1910. Walls probably aren't really straight anymore, right? And so he's like, hey, this is before, this is after. And I'm like, oh, you threw some wainscoting up. That's fantastic. He's like, yeah. He's like, that would have been it's way faster than trying to level the walls. With stucco and, trying to do everything and I'll mud it all down. I'm like, perfect. It's like, yeah, that's something we do. Just kind of like, that looks great. Awesome. Run with it. Go. Slick on the top, slick on the bottom, around the edges, out, done. Thank you. Or caulk it. So those are little things that he understands as an investor. And even if he wasn't an investor, he was strictly a contractor, just knowing those little things, dude, that's paying dividends as an investor in my mind.
Yeah.
I've learned those cheat codes on my own. I think that's what separates me from a lot of the other contractors in the area is that I'm an investor first with a contracting company. And I started the contracting company first, became an investor, and now I keep the contracting company rocking and rolling mainly for me, right? So I buy all these buildings. The cool thing is I'm rehabbing, and I'm learning as I rehab my own structures. I'm like, hey, what's a cheat code? Kitchens and bathrooms are the most expensive things. So we look for really good cheat codes on time And hopefully it saves. I mean, if we save time, we'll save money. And the wainscoting idea was perfect. It can go right over. Around our area, we have this. All these properties have this old school tile. It's cracked. It's falling apart, and we rip off whatever's loose and then just apply a wall of wainscoting. That's like it. Depending on how tall the tile is, it might be 4 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet, 7 feet of wainscoting. And people walk into those bathrooms, they're like, "Look at this custom bathroom, man! I can't believe you did this." And here we are, we're laughing the whole, because it saved us so much. Speed is the key on these things. When you have a vacant, like Travis had some vacancies in that building, and he needed to. So you were on hard money, which is an expensive way. Hard money is expensive. So you need time on your side to get out of that hard money loan. So you need to get your tenants in there as quickly as possible. So there is no time for dragging your feet for the investor. And those guys, it was funny. We walked on that. You showed up and your property manager, and we walked that property together for the first time. And I was like, they've been here 4 months. Like, what's going on? We're turning units in a week or a couple of weeks. And I said, in 4 months, this whole building would be done. And they did not have one finished product in there.
They had 3 units partially finished. And that's even in varying degrees of partiality.
Right.
Remember
the bathtub that we found? The drain went to nowhere.
Yes.
The bathtub. If we were in the basement right now, the bathtub drain just came into the basement and stopped. So it would have leaked on the floor. The supply lines to it were not connected. The shower wouldn't have even. There's no way to make the shower work. Remember that? It didn't have.
There was no thread. They couldn't have ran a shower head onto it because there's no thread. It was a piece of PVC just stuck out straight.
Yeah.
Out of the wall. It would have hit the other side of the wall.
It'd be like a fire hose shower.
Yeah. And then
prison shower, if you will, Bill.
Yeah. There was just so many things, and then you walk in there, and what's interesting is when I showed up, everybody showed up somehow. It's when the boss is on deck, everybody dog and pony shows, oh my gosh, we better hurry and get there. Well, everybody's there, and oh yeah, we're doing all this great work. And I'm looking around and I'm looking at 1x6s for baseboards, and I'm what are we doing? And I'm seeing 3/4 inch caulk lines, and I'm what is poking at it? What the heck are we doing? And I can see on Steve's face, Steve is just inside, just having a heart attack, right?
Yeah, biting my tongue because we first met, so I didn't know if I could just be raw and honest, but just what I was seeing was holy cow. The first kitchen we looked at, I was like, this is not okay. It wasn't wired correctly at all. What they were doing, it was just totally cutting every corner that they could. And I can always tell on a job site too, if you come to any of our job sites, you might find a camper chair on our job sites occasionally, but you won't find, unless there's a fridge in the unit that was there, you won't find refrigerators, you won't find microwaves. We're not there to hang out and all that fun stuff. So but those guys look like they were. It looked like they had a bed and microwave and a grill. They had this stereo system going. That was this huge stereo system. You could tell they were having a good time hanging out over there.
Travis, were you starting to get nervous since you had hard money? Were you starting to get nervous that how long did you have on the hard money?
I had it for 6 months. So yeah, I was stressing the frick out. I was completely stressed. And so I went to him. I think in middle of April, May, and I'm hey, I know we got a 6-month note. I'm just reading the contract. I'm probably gonna have to extend. They're yeah, it's another 1%, go under 6 months. And I was not happy, not happy with the project, not happy with everything. And then the contractor would like, he would just like, oh, we're working really hard. And I'm like, bro, you're not working hard at all. I'm showing up. And then like I was really stressed on the hard money because it's like, dude, here I am. Like, this is out of state deal. Like, this is hard money. They're going to take my children in the middle of the night with a bunch of dudes. And like, like everything's just running through my mind, right? Like, of just pure, utter chaos. So yes, I was stressed.
So what was
Uncle Vito is going to come and break your kneecaps.
Right. Lead pipe.
So you said the penalty, it was 1%. Is that of the purchase price, and they extended 6 months?
No, it was 1% of the purchase price to extend it another 6 months. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought. Okay. I was just curious. I've never ever talked to somebody who had to actually extend, but I don't think I've ever talked to someone who did a 6-month hard money loan. Usually I feel like it's 12.
Well, it should have been 12. And so, I was able to refinance it out of private money through a family member. So I'm super blessed to be able to have done that, because we would not, it just would have turned out bad.
Was that always your backup plan, the family member?
No.
Or was that something that you had to like explore?
No, that was something that I was just basically, I was telling people like, yeah, I got hard money at this interest rate and it's for this long. And I had a family member say, oh, that's a pretty good return. I'm like, yeah, you want that return? I'll give it to you for a year. And so the family member was like, okay. And so I took the time to make a slide deck and be very professional and presented it to them. And I'm like, I would like to do this percentage rate. And they're like, but you were getting this percentage rate. I'm like, well, I just figured that was more than what you're getting, but less than what I want to pay. And like, it might. So it ended up working out very well for both parties. But yeah, I'm 1 year note, I think, standard just for all those FUBAR things that you don't know. And talking about with the agreement, the hard money, it wasn't even supposed to take 6 months. It was supposed to be like out in 3, right? But then we get into, and this is where we get lessons learned. Like I should have flown out there before I bought it and walked it and be like, what is this the amount of money that you have for the scheduled rehab supposed to fix? Okay, now I understand tracking. Now we're going to go through and walk the property and see what all this stuff is that was not a part of it, to see what it's going to be. Because that would have affected how I would have paid for it, the amount I would have paid for it, the duration I would have had it. And knowing all those things up front, man, I would have felt way better. And I would have vetted the contractor. I would have had the conversations I had with like Steve, like, hey, how long have you lived in Cleveland? I don't live in Cleveland, I live in Columbus. Oh, tell me how that's going to work. Well, my super's down there. Who's the super? What's his name? How do you know him? How long have you known him? What has he done? And do all of that stuff. And then I would have, had I done all that, I still would have brought Steve, like, yeah, Steve's just a high school buddy that I used to work, that we were in high school and we loved each other and it was awesome. We were on the wrestling team and blah, just so that I could get a third party true assessment. And Steve would be like, dude, run the frick away. Very well. Hey, this is not going to work.
I think that you're going down a great, here I am hijacking the podcast and asking the question. But Travis, I think you're going down a great angle. Like, what could we have done differently? In step 1, you must walk the property, or you must have someone that you really trust to walk that property. Like I was at the closing table for a house locally, and I had done business with a company here. I bought a couple of houses from them, and I did not look at this house. And I was sold a bill of goods, like Travis was sold a bill of goods and what it would be. And I got to the closing table. Luckily, my closing agent caught it, so it was supposed to be an occupied single family home with this much rent. And my closing girl was like, this house is vacant, Steve. And I was like, wait a minute. I went back and looked at that house. Now it makes sense as an occupied rental at the price I was paying. Then I went back and looked at it. And I said to myself, at that moment when I looked at the house, it was in horrible condition. I said, you can never buy a house without walking it. That was a commitment I made to myself, because I would have paid dearly for that mistake if I would have signed on that dotted line. Like, you have to walk those properties. And you have to have somebody that's knowledgeable with you too. If you don't know what you're doing, you better find somebody that does know what they're doing.
Yeah. And what's funny is that this property, like the tens of thousands of dollars that I had to pay to get it up to, even being inspectable, right? Inspection ready, were so blatantly obvious, right, Steve? Like, they were clearly like,
yep.
plumbing in the basement, just leaking, just dripping. Like, oh, that's probably something that, but because the contractor lived in Columbus and not in Cleveland, didn't walk it, never saw any of this stuff, right? So all of the plumbing, I like the sidewalk, the fascia, the like the window siding, the window sills, the railing. Shoot, what else? Like
Steps we rebuilt, access to the fifth unit. Like all of that stuff I would have known. I'd have been like, we're gonna have to go back to the drawing table guy or the negotiating table and see what's up. Because all of those things came out of my pocket, But luckily, and again, I'm so fortunate that Steve was able to come in and not even like take the friendship, take all of the awesomeness that Steve and I have together as friends and just done right coming in and do what they're doing. Dude, they made that thing, they took if they were to stay with all 5 units that get rehab, they were usually going to like 4 times the rent income just from what they were doing. From what it was gross making to what it would gross after they were done would be 4 times the amount. So, just fortunate that I'm able to sell it. It's in the process of being sold right now, and almost doubling my money on it just in what Done Right has done. And what he is like, hey, this needs to get done, this needs to get done. Okay, cool, when you do it. And I'm fortunate that I have had sufficient financial means to be able to do that, because I don't want to do that again, ever.
Did you have an emergency fund built into your budget?
No, because it was just the original amount of money that they quoted just for the 3 units. So if I had gone through and seen all the other stuff that Steve saw and we saw and together and that he let me know about with his team, I would have not needed the budget. The rehab budget would have been far greater. Therefore, it would have adjusted the price to be less, a lot less.
Was your original plan?
And I probably would still, and I think if that was the case, I'd still have the property. Like it'd still be getting rehabbed, getting tenanted, because the location is great. Or, maybe I wouldn't, I don't know, between having a boiler and then access to the 3rd story, who knows? I'm just grateful to be back to square one with a little bit of upside pre-tax. And, after taxes, I'll pretty much be even, and that's okay.
Lesson learned.
I forgot about the
Oh yeah, I forgot about the boiler. So when I'm looking at properties, when I see a boiler, I'll usually run away from it, because something I say. So boilers are not super common around us. And when I saw that thing had a boiler, and I was like, oh man, because on my newest apartment building, when we turn the heat on, we have forced air furnaces. There's 8 furnaces in there. I was able to, I don't know how to fix furnaces, but I was able to figure out and fix 7 of the 8 furnaces and get them up and running. You tell me to go do that with a boiler, I'm going to be like, I got nothing. And a lot of the people in Cleveland, so we have to bring in a boiler specialist, boiler licensed specialist to play with that thing. I wonder if they even have turned the heat on in that. If the heat's been turned on, has the boiler been turned on yet?
That's why I pay a property manager to make sure that happens.
Yeah, right.
And I will say, our property manager, Amy, that works for the company, has been absolutely fantastic in dealing with the MIDI headaches on top of, the number of units that they manage. But she has been extremely hospitable, and man, she's helped. And, she's been at it for like 15 years, I think. So it's been huge to be able to rely on her expertise and really just kind of give her opinion and go that extra mile a lot of the time. So I'm grateful for Amy and her organization.
It's cool. So Kier, your meetup got Travis and I together. Travis comes into town, and him and his property manager is picking him up and driving him around, and I don't want to say entertaining, but chauffeuring him around and all that fun stuff. So I got to know the property manager. Now the property manager has become, we're turning over some of the new units we purchased to Progressive Urban and Amy at Progressive Urban. So it was kind of cool. So look at that. There's Kier. Look what all you're responsible for, Kier.
Sure.
That is awesome. That makes me so happy. So yeah, we're going to have a property manager episode. I think that would be super valuable for everybody.
I think so. I think it'd be cool to have all of the, how do you find these team members and the important parts of your team, the lawyer, the property manager, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, agreed. All right, guys, this was awesome. I loved this episode. You guys dropped so many good like tips and tricks for people working with contractors and kind of all that good stuff. So if you guys want to real quick, Travis, if you want to start where people can find you and reach out to you, and then Steve.
Okay, you can find me at Instagram at TravisHill1310.
And then I am Steve Stolman. You can find me on Facebook under my name, Steve Stolman. And then Instagram is at Done Right Home Solutions, plural. And something I wanted to say, that really caught my eye for out-of-state investors. One guy had me looking at his properties and he cash apped me when I started in the business, he's like, can you look at a few of these properties for me? And I looked at one of them and I was in my head thinking, I'm not looking at another property for this guy for free. And he cash apped me for it just out of the blue. I wasn't expecting it. So please don't reach out to me and just say, can you look at my properties? Why I'm sitting here in California?
Yeah, agreed. I was actually going to be one of my questions if you suggested people reach out to contractors and kind of pay them for their time looking at the property. So I guess the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think of it like any professional business. Do you call your lawyer? I mean, your lawyer will give you a free consultation, and then after that, you're on the clock.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of the same way. Although I love chatting real estate. So if anybody wants to reach out to ask any kind of real estate questions or pick my brain on stuff, that's fine. I love talking about that stuff.
Awesome. All right, guys, thank you so much for hopping on. This is the first ever episode that we've had with two people, and with two people who have been on the podcast. So pretty cool first.
Recurring guests.
All right. Have a good night, you guys.
You guys too.